Being an entrepreneur becomes something fashionable. I think it's a good thing. There's a lot of people that think that's one of the worst things that ever happened in entrepreneurship, is that it becomes fashionable and everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Like when I was a student at your age, if you ask in a class like that, who wants to be an entrepreneur? No one will raise his hand. 10 years ago, when I told my step family that I was an entrepreneur, the father of my girlfriend said, yeah, I know, it's so hard to find a job. You cannot do better, it's fine. That was the ambience around entrepreneurship. Now, being an entrepreneur is like being a banker or consultant 20 years ago. It's a fashionable thing to do. It's what everyone aspires to. Mostly for wrong reason, actually, because people think that being an entrepreneur is easy, or being an entrepreneur will bring you famous and happiness and a lot of money. But a lot of that is actually very random in entrepreneurship. But at the same time, we see that we are entering a time where being an entrepreneur never has been that easy, that here anyone can learn to code, anyone can learn to build a product, anyone can do whatever he wants and do something with his life. So I don't think it's a wrong thing. It's just more that you need to be aware of what you are facing before jumping, because if not, it can be very disappointing. And on the fundraising side, there is thousands of misconceptions. And today I want to go with you in two parts. First part, to talk very theoretically about fundraising, how it works, how you can get money, why anyone will give you money, actually, like first question to answer. And in the second part, I will try to give you a European perspective about that and compare that to how that works in the US and Silicon Valley and how that compares. That's the time you arrived? No, she doesn't tell me. No, I'm kidding. So there is 4 reasons to raise money. They are always the same reason. They are very easy to understand. And actually, there is not so much other good reason to fundraise. So the good reason to fundraise, the first and foremost of every reason, is a team. If you look about what a startup is, it always starts with a team. The team is a foundation of anything happening. Like a lot of people try to define what is a startup. Like one of my favorite definition of startup is a team of people running a bankrupt company together. Because that's how it starts. You always start with a projection or problem to solve or an idea, but at the beginning you have nothing else than the founding team of people that are very happy to work together. And so the team is the first reason people will invest on. And one of the problems with investors is that their definition of a good team is very far from what you think a good team is defined by. A lot of people, when they start in the startup world, they will think that a team is defined by which kind of background they have. For example, I hear a lot from students, yeah, I want to go 1 or 2 years in investment banking so I can learn things and get some personal branding traction, and then I will be an entrepreneur. And if you look from an investor perspective, it doesn't give a shit at all. Like for him, you have been a consultant or an investment banker or whatever, or you are coming from a great school or not a great school, it doesn't really matter from an entrepreneurial perspective. So the definition of a good team in the venture world is a team that already did it. Like only few entrepreneurs understand that being an entrepreneur is a career, as any career, and you can strategize that career. Like a lot of people, when they start their first company, their goal is to build the next Google or the next Facebook, when their goal can be simply being on market, do something small, but something they can market for the second project. And actually, if you look, most of the famous entrepreneurs around the world, they already did something in their life before the big project. The probability that your first project will be your life-defining project is very, very low. It will be exactly the same thing that if you apply for a job, you come out from LSE, you apply for a job at the bank, and you go to see the CEO and say, look, Jude, really thank you for the work. I will take your job for 2 years to make some experience. Move on. Like, it will seem totally unreasonable. But when people start as entrepreneurs, that's exactly how they act. It'd be kind of a good thing because you need to be a little bit foolish when you're an entrepreneur. But if you look at it from a very rational perspective of why anyone should give you money, like the reason of being who you are doesn't really matter. It's much more about what you did. And that's why one of the first advice I can give anyone in this room is do things. Do things as early as possible. Don't try to build a company. Build project. Do stupid things. Do association, NGO, whatever. Show that you are a doer. Show that you can do things that matters, that you have an impact, that you're very proactive, and not that you write business plan all day long that will never exist anywhere else than in your computer. So being on the side of doing things is one of the first steps of any entrepreneurs. And the team can really be bankable in the venture world. The other strategy that people don't realize is that being an early employee in a successful startup is one of the shortest paths to be an entrepreneur. Why? Because let's say you have been employee 10 at Instagram, or employee 10 at Snapchat, or employee 10 at Facebook, or wherever startup you know. If after being an employee 10, you stay for 4 years, the company exits, and you do something else, everyone will be impressed, not by you, but where you come from. And people will have this projection that if you come from this company, you did incredible things because the company did incredibly well. Even if it's not 100% true, at least that will be the market perception. So the proportion in that kind of stage of investor to trust you, to give you money, even if you have nothing on the table, is very high. So the definition of a good team from a venture perspective is only a team that already have experience in somehow, as an employee or as an entrepreneur, the path of building something that matters. The second reason to invest in a company for an investor is social proof. So what is social proof? Let's say you are doing a music app and Madonna gave you $1 million. Everybody wants to invest. Not because what you do, but because they opt to get a date with Madonna. That will be an easy way to do it. So social proof it's not a strategy, it's an opportunity. You cannot go out and say, oh, I'm building that, so my strategy is to meet that billionaire, so you invest, and then everybody will follow. But social proof can be leverage. So having the sense of a very strategic social proof can help you achieve fundraising. So social proof is about anything that people outside will consider as something that brings something to your brand. That's something they will consider as so exceptional that they will trust you and they will do this transfer of trust. The social proof become a proxy of trust between you and the investor. And think about that. What is the psychology of an investor? You know, the mistake I see every time with young entrepreneurs is that they think that investors invest in their company for very rational decision. Like, oh, my spreadsheet is so well done that you understand that in B19, if A12 happen, everything will be fine. Actually, most investors don't even know how to read a spreadsheet. That's a small secret between you and me. Don't repeat it. The truth is that most investors invest by fear. They invest because they have this fear of missing something. You have to understand that most of the investors in this world, the money they pour in startup is, in one case, not that much money for them, or in another case, even a better case, it's not their own money anyway. Like if you look at the VC industry, they don't invest in you their own money. So they are not so worried about losing it because anyway, they do management fees, they have a nice salary, they have a nice living. So they don't really care that they will lose money. What they really care about is to miss something that can become big. Let's take my personal example. I missed the first round of Uber. So when Uber was a small company in Silicon Valley, they came to see me and say, We are so desperate, no one wants to invest. We offer you 5% of Uber in exchange of $50,000. Yeah, that's a lot of money. So it means that in current valuation, I lost $700 million. So what do you think as an investor? Even more? Even more. No, because so much dilution. What is the problem in my mistake? It's not the fact that if I had invested 50,000, it was a big thing. I can spare to lose 50,000. I cannot spare to lose 700 million. That's why now I'm stuck here with you and giving you class instead of partying somewhere with someone much better than you. No, I'm kidding. I will be here anyway. The thing that makes startup investment so fearful is that when you live that once in your life, then you become paranoid. And everyone in the industry missed something. Like, I have a friend, he told Larry Page, who needs a search engine, seriously? Like, you say that once in your life, and then it comes back as a ghost to you. Like, who needs a search engine, seriously? And people are like, never again. And then you can go to the extreme opposite. You want to put in everything. And you are enthusiastic about everything. But most startup fails. Like, it's one of the things I told myself to live well with the Uber mistake is that if I had invested in Uber, Uber would have failed. Because you never know what can be the impact of history and the randomness of everything. But social proof is something that humans love because it creates a sense of proof. Because you always think that other people are smarter than you, so if they do it, you want to do it. So this very cheap way of working, if you are smart about that, and there is some entrepreneurs that are really, really smart at that, they can really overhype a deal because they find the right way to bring the right kind of social proof along the way. The third reason to invest in something is tech/product. So let's be honest about that. It's very uncommon to have something impressive early. You know, when you talk about what you want to do with your friends, I call that the Minority Report effect. Everybody saw that movie, Minority Report, with Tom Cruise? Yeah? You have time to watch movies, seriously? So in Minority Report, you have like this crazy interface where he's doing like that with his hands. And I love that movie for that because it really shows the way we caricature technology. Like, no one wants a computer interface where he will be standing all day long with his hand doing that. But it looks pretty good, you know. It feels like technology. And very often what happens when people start, when they pitch what they want to do to people imagine that with this minority effect image in their mind. So when you tell what you want to do to people, they usually get very excited. And then you show the first version. And everything decreases. Like, excitement disappears directly. People are like, ah, really? I didn't see it that way. And actually, that's pretty normal. For most products, if you are not embarrassed by what you launch, it means that you launch too late. It's a very simple rule. So you should always, you know, being like fear never pay, and being ashamed of what you do never killed anyone. If not, I will be dead from a long time. So if I can survive, everybody can survive. So it's very important to launch very early. Anything you do in life, just launch. It's the best way to see where things can go wrong or why people don't understand what you are doing. So it's hard to fundraise on tech or product because you need to do something really exceptional. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes people are so good at product development or so good at design or so good at putting things together that they can really build that magical minority effect that makes a product like people have this wow effect, like wow, I want to pour my money in that. It's very uncommon. It's not the most common way to raise money. And the last reason is the king of every reason, is traction. So what is traction? Traction is to have one single metric inside your business that is really exceptional. Revenue or retention or any KPI that defines your business and that is unheard of. For example, Facebook, when they launch only in Harvard. So not a lot of users. Nobody have been impressed by the fact that 20,000 students use Harvard. What everybody have been impressed by was that everybody in Harvard was using it 2 hours a day, every day. So, okay, it's a small group of people, but it's kind of a magical traction because it's a number unheard of. To give you a rationale, the people that did the Series A at Facebook, one of the things that totally blew their mind was they realized that students spend more time on Facebook than on TV, and that was the first time in history of the US that anything took over TV in the 24 hours war. The 24 hours war is a way to see all this social network war, is that you have 24 hours in your day. Most of us sleep 8 hours. If you are French, you eat 4 hours. So it's 12 hours left. We need to work, study, 8 hours. So you have 4 hours free a day. And Facebook was the first thing in history of United States that took time in this war against TV. And that blew the mind of everyone. So even if MySpace was 500 million users, when Facebook was 100,000 users, they raised at a crazy valuation because they had this traction. Like the traction is the idea that one of the metrics that define your business is exceptional. And if you look at the different stage of fundraising, the first round is usually business angel or love money. Then you have the seed round, Series A, and later stage. That terminology comes from an American perspective about fundraising, because in America, each time you issue securities, you open a new class of shares. That's why we call it Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D. It's because you buy share A, share B, share C, share D. So even if that doesn't really exist in UK or in Europe in general, we use that US terminology. And more the letter is big, and more it means that the company is mature, because it means that they did multiple rounds. If you look why people invest in the first round, it can be for all the reasons I told you. And when you talk about business angel or love money, they can give you money even if you don't have traction. Because it's their job to love you. Like if you take money from your family, of course they give you money because it's you and not really because your business is great. Because they first don't really have any idea of what you are doing. So they hope that you will take a real job after that. So, so that's the feeling that comes from this. But if you look in later stage, you cannot fake your way around for a long time. And it's even harder and harder to do it. Why? Because it costs less and less money to do things. If you look at building a company 20 years ago, building a company 20 years ago was very expensive. If you look at building a company nowadays, it's quite cheap. In average, company at the family spend less than 20,000 in love money to achieve a seed round. 20,000 is something that anyone here can save with 1 year of work, really hard work if it needs to. So it's not like the barrier to entries are very, very low. So it means that the really differentiator between companies at the fundraising stage is the traction. And the traction is becoming very, very important. If you look at a social network, for example, if you want to build a social network will have raised a Series A with 1 million users 10 years ago. Now, if you don't reach the 10 million users in Series A, there is no chance you raise your Series A. So because everyone is becoming an entrepreneur, because the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower, the competition is more fierce. And you are getting to a stage where the best investors have so many choice from so many projects that they will be more and more picky, because they will ask you as an entrepreneur to build things that are more beautiful, better achieved, with more traction, because they want to take less risk. So traction is really the center of any fundraising process. And one of the things is that if you go online and read articles about fundraising, there is something very funny in fundraising, is that everyone that tries to give advice about fundraising always try to give advice about how to strategize your fundraising. It's a little bit like the dating advice online. So don't take it wrong. Who needs dating advice? The people that are struggling at dating. But most of the time, it's not a question of advice. It's a question of profile. Same thing with companies. Companies that need advice at fundraising money are companies that are struggling at raising. And who are the companies that are struggling at raising? Typically, the companies that cannot show obvious traction. So you have two strategies around your company. One strategy is that you become master of manipulation and you become so good at pitch that people will pour money in your company even if you don't deserve it. And then you are stuck because you raise for something that doesn't work. And so if it doesn't work, how do you give the money back? Because that's what a lot of entrepreneurs forget about fundraising, is that at some point when you get money, you are supposed to give it back and with a return. And big, it's better than small. So you have this issue. If you are focusing on building great company, and even if you are really bad at fundraising, what will happen at some point? Someone will give you money even if you don't ask for. Why? Because you become very attractive. So one of our things at the family, everyone joins the family because they want advice about fundraising. And the only thing that we tell them is build a good company and you will get money. So let's focus on the company building. So one of the issues with fundraising is that fundraising gives the impression to be very standardized when actually it's still tailor-made. The fundraising industry is a very old-fashioned industry that did not leave any disruption, where every innovation are very low, and if you look, every banker and VCs and PE or whatever, they'll still live in 19th century. That's something you have to be aware of. We still send pitch deck, we still do meetings, we still do partner meetings where everybody meets you and look you in the eyes, and they still invest on criteria like, yeah, I like that guy, he looks like Mark Zuckerberg, he should be good. True sentence heard in meeting with investors. So it's so mystical and magical that don't think that on the investing side they have any idea of what they are doing. They don't. The only thing they can do is that they can strategize to be a little better about how to attract the best company. So some of them have very good brand, some of them have very bad brand, some of them are nice, some of them are not nice, but at the end, it's a very craftsmanship industry. No one find a way to industrialize the VC industry like we industrialize anything else. Angel list is something that is trying to do that. Angel list is a little bit game changer. But even angel list at the end is a Tinder for investor. So they are commoditizing the introduction part of the job, so they make introduction accessible to everyone, but still you will have the phone calls, the screenings, the partnership meetings, and all of that will stay in a very traditional way. Meaning that one of the problems of every investor in the world is that they don't scale. So on one side, you have the startup building that is scaling, like the number of startups that are built around the world is increasing every week. And on the other hand, the capabilities of investors to invest in more companies is still the same. So what they do, they pour more and more and more money by companies. Like that's the only way to solve the issue of having more capital, is that you say, oh, instead of doing a 5 million round, let's do a 10 million round. And that's done. Why? They don't know. But at least they deploy their capital. So never forget that fundraising is not a goal. It's one of the hardest things to keep in mind when you are an entrepreneur, and especially a successful one. Because when you are a successful entrepreneur, like fundraising becomes center of gravitation for everything you do in your life. because everyone wants to give you money when you are successful. And so you start to be like this kind of company where the only discussion at board level is the next fundraising. And that's why sometimes we hear in the press that company that raised 200 million go bankrupt. I know that for a lot of people that can seem like ridiculous, but it's very easy to understand when you are an insider how it works. It's because it's really a star mania industry where if the CEO and the founder of the company don't keep their focus on the fact that their only job is to build a great company, you can end up raising because you are trendy, even if you have nothing behind. Because there is some misconception or some luck around your social proof, and then money attracts money. Like, for example, we have a company at the family. They raised recently, on a totally lucky day, 4 million. And you know, it's the kind of crazy story that you tell your grandkids. Yeah, they was desperate, no idea of how to raise. In a bar, they met a man, and the guy was drunk and told them, oh, you should meet my partnership and then invest. Like, true story. Sometimes it happens. Luck can be a thing in entrepreneurship, it exists. And then what happened? They raised 4 million. So they have headline press because it's a lot of money for French market. And everybody call and say, I want to invest too. And so the only conversation you have with the company is how can we raise 20 million? And the company doesn't have a product yet. And you have a whole team of people that is focusing on fundraising, a whole board of directors that is focusing on fundraising, and no one is here to tell him, maybe at some point you should build something, just in case. We don't know what can happen. And it can seem weird or crazy, but actually it's very rational. Is that why should you refuse money if someone offers you money? Actually, that's very rational. Afterwards, it looks stupid when you are bankrupt. But looking forward, it's very rational. So I'm not saying that it doesn't work sometimes to overcapitalize company. I'm just saying that if you don't forget that the goal is to build a good company, and if you don't forget that the money is just a mean to an end, it can go well. And it's better to have a lot of money than a small amount of money. But the problem is that the personal discipline that require from entrepreneurs to achieve that level of rationalization around fundraising is really hard, especially when you are young. And I can tell you my personal story about that. Like, when I was 21 years old, I raised almost 7 million for a company that have no business model. It was like, I can tell you that funny day, we hired 50 people, and my mom visited the office. So I have a Lebanese mom. So of course, she's very proud of everything you do. And she was visiting the office, and she was like, you know, son, I'm a little bit perplexed. I didn't understand what you do. And so I tried to explain again what you do, and she was like, anyone pay for that? And in my mind, I was like, fuck, that's a good question. No one ever paid us for that. So we had this very theoretical view about our business. Everybody's pouring money in that. And then I started to panic. Because I came back home, I had 50 employees, I had the board of directors, almost 12 million on the bank account, and no fucking idea of what I was doing. And then, that's the day everything starts to go wrong in your life. Because what you do, you try to take your courage, you go in the board meeting room, and you say, you know what? Actually, I think we have a problem. We need somehow to change the business model. And then, imagine, it's a little bit like building a religion and coming to see the people and say, you know what? Actually, I have no proof that God exists. And I have some doubt. What do you think the people that you might believe will do to you? They will kill you. That's exactly what happened. Because they wake up and they're like, what? You lied to us? It's not $1 billion company? No, you know, it can be or not. Yeah. Actually, if it is, I don't know how. What? And then I got fired. And of course, you got fired in this kind of condition. Because it's the worst thing that any investor can learn is that everything you think about your company is wrong. And you are very honest in the process, but the problem is that your honesty is based on storytelling. And the difference between what you think, what you say, what they understand, and what they remember is like, it's like you can do a meme on that with investors. And then they come back in the other way, between what they think, what they say, what you understand, and the conflict starts. And this kind of story is very common in entrepreneurship because it's based on the fact that everything is always beautiful at honeymoon. Of course, when you receive money, closing parties are always great. Usually it's 1 year after, 2 years after that people wake up and it's like, why I'm in bed with these guys? Like, why I gave them money? So that's really always a very difficult moment to live on. One of the problems with fundraising that most people don't understand, and I think there is a very rational reason that we don't understand that, is that nothing works like that anymore in the world. Like if you look the history of relationship, we went from a very tribal time where relationships are always forever, brother forever, wife forever, tribe forever, to a world where relationships are negotiable and you can divorce and you can change and you can have 4 wives, 5 husbands, whatever. And it's fine. Like if you look in our life, we get used to the fact that relationship can be very geometrical variables. It's not that crazy anymore. For some people still, but at least in the Western world, it's going that way. And the problem is that with investors, you have a very weird relation where you have someone that have all the money and someone that has no money, usually, the entrepreneur. And so if you want to find a deal when things go wrong, you have this very unfair deal between the guy that can pay and the guy that cannot pay. And so how does the industry solve that? By making contracts where you are bound forever. And people don't realize that, is that investment are marriage without divorce. Like if you look contract and term sheets and condition of investment, there is never a condition of divorce that makes sense. Because 2 cases. 1 case the company go wrong, in that case you have no leverage. Or 1 case the company go right and you are never enough rich in terms of cash to pay back what you owe people. If you take 1 million at 10 million valuation and your company is valued 1 billion, if you want to get people out, you need to give them 100 million. So you cannot give them 100 million. And if things go wrong, they will want at least their million, and because things go wrong, you have no cash and no money, or you find something I need to learn about. And maybe you are smarter. But in usual case, you are in a situation where it's a dead wrong. So the problem when you get someone inside your company, it's like bringing DNA inside yourself and understanding that because this DNA have merged with you, it's forever. And the problem is that very often all of that is very emotional. I told you, everybody thinks business is about rationality. Business is about emotion, nothing else. And emotion never bring anything else than conflict when things go wrong. And it's really, really hard for entrepreneurs. And they always feel that it's unfair. But that's why you have to tell yourself that if you take €1 from someone, you should treat him with respect, that you like him or not forever, until the end, until the company sells or until the company is bankrupt. Let me tell you my most traumatizing story ever about that. We have a company in the early days of the family that raised €100,000, €100,000, very small amount, from 10 people that pour each other €10,000. One of these guys was a very old-fashioned accountant. He put €10,000 inside the company, and I've been like this very old-fashioned guy that asks information all day long, and reporting, and information, and blah, blah, blah. One day, the CEO got pissed off and sent a very, very, rude message to the guy. Told him, look, like you are really nice, but that needs to go to a hand. I cannot spend all my day answering your stupid question. It was even worse language. So stop to send me emails and go to hell. Fine. He never replied to the email. Old Pappy went to his room, little pissed off, and the company gone. 2 years later, the company was doing really well, and they raised 85 million from a US investor at a crazy valuation, crazy term sheet. Everybody was celebrating. But a little trick. In France, this is why I never do a company in France if you are not forced to. When you move a company from one country to another country, you need 100% of the vote. So the investment, one of the conditions of the investment was to move the company in the US. And everybody signed. Only this old dude. And he sent that email saying, look, my 10,000 investment are now worth 1 million thanks to your work, but it doesn't matter for me because my feelings are much more important than any money. So go screw yourself. They offered him millions of dollars. They offered him to settle in some way. They offered him a meeting. He never replied. So what they did, they sued him. And the investors dropped the deal. And the company continued and bankrupt. And a few months ago, a judge decided that it was an abuse of minority, and he gets condemned to pay them 100,000 euros for all of that. And everything is gone. And the company is destroyed. So that's a very small example when I tell you that it's really a marriage without divorce. It's a wedding without divorce. Like when you got someone, it's done. You cannot really handle him. And sometimes it's hard because sometimes they are really bad. Sometimes you really do casting mistakes about investors. Sometimes investors are like so stupid. And so if you are not sophisticated enough to have leverage over them, you should be always worried that all of them act with you as a friend. So that's one of the things you have to pay attention to. And that's why terms, meaning the negotiation, contract negotiation between you and your investors, are always more important than the money they give you. That's why you need to have this like very paranoid attitude to imagine that everything can go south. And if it goes south, you need to be prepared to take control back. And there is tools for that, there is lawyers for that, but you need to put your focus on the right thing and not on the money. And in this case, fundraising can be sometimes kiss of death, because fundraising makes entrepreneurs sloppy, fundraising makes entrepreneurs very confident, and fundraising works a little bit like a drug. It gives you the feeling that you are successful, it brings you very high, even if it doesn't build anything real inside your company. So it's a very necessary drug because you cannot succeed here without drug. It's not a general advice, huh? Don't take me wrong. But you have to really be in this distant relationship with it. And especially you as an entrepreneur, but much more with your team. Because what is the problem? You can be very good at keeping your emotion low when it goes high. You can be very good at being very rational. You can be very good at not believing your own hype. But the problem is everyone around you. The problem is every employee that will think he's a genius because he's in a company that fundraises a lot of money. You know, I was talking with a CEO of a company in London that just raised 200 million recently. And he was telling me that his life is a nightmare because all day long, his only job nowadays is to tell the employee that the company is unprofitable and now they need to give back the money and he doesn't know how to do that and that everybody should work very, very hard. Because instantly, the day they announce the fundraising, everybody stopped it to work. Everybody was like, 200 millions, it's done. I want to go on a beach now, and I want holidays, and I want everything. And he's like, what? No. and he realized how much all of that had been a miscommunication internally. Because he did $1 million party. When they fundraised, he did a very big party. And I think that comes from the joy of succeeding at something so hard, because it's not easy to achieve that. And in his mind, it was a milestone. But for every employee, coming to $1 million party means that the company is built, done, and nobody needs to work anymore, anywhere. And so you have to be very careful about how you keep the emotion of everyone inside the company aligned, and that's not easy. So how it works in Europe and what are the big differences between countries. So UK now in Europe is the best country to raise money, especially if you come from a good school and have a background in any top firm, because all your colleagues will put money in you because they are desperate to change their job, and because they don't resign, they give you money so they can live through your dream. So how it works in London right now, like if you look average in entrepreneur, he will raise from his friends that work somewhere between 20,000 to 50,000 each. Most of these people put just their monthly bonus or yearly bonus inside you. And so there is a lot of money on the market, but it's a lot of unsophisticated money that doesn't have any value add. Like they give you the money, but then you don't have the advice, you don't have the network, you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have everything that comes from that. And because of that, the VC in London are really hard to get. Why? Because their interest is to wait that everyone spend their friend money and see which one is successful before investing. They don't have any incitation of getting early because there is so much of random money early. So UK is a very strange market in Europe, quite unique, where because the angel scene is so big, just give you a number, there is 100,000 active angel in London, where in Paris there is 5,000 of them. You see the difference? Like that's 20x number. So meaning that anyone, like we see that in London, we are so surprised by that. Like you take any stupid company that have nothing and they raise £300,000. And you're like, why? We'll give you money. Oh, your friend, I'm sorry for them. And that will never happen in France, because in Latin culture and continental culture, no one will give money to their friends. Like it will be like, because it's your friend, they even will not give money because of that. So because UK have this like strong club attitude, very brand-driven selection. So if you are in the right club, you get the right kind of money, but because that money doesn't give any clue about your success or doesn't have any sophistication, it doesn't mean anything about the fact you are successful. And that's why in UK, the distance between seed valuation and Series A valuation is so low. Usually, like the average valuation for a company in seed is 5 million, when the average valuation for Series A here is 6 or 7 million. Like the prime of Series A is very, very low, because people know that it's easy to raise 1 or 2 million with friends. It's impossible to raise 5 million with friends. So if you're in position where you can pour that kind of money, your only interest is to wait. So it's not a bad market. Don't get me wrong. It's even the best in Europe. Like if you want to build a company right now, the best place to fundraise is UK from far. Because in Europe, every other country, even if they don't have this early stage inflation, they have another problem, is that there is no money at all. So better to have that and be aware of it than not having the money and not being able to build something. UK market have another thing, is that tax deduction on angel investing are really, really high. Like the highest worldwide, actually. If you take EIS, Enterprise Investment Scheme, you pour 100,000 in the company. If the company fails, the government gives you back 90,000 in tax breaks and tax deduction. So meaning that your real risk is 10,000. With a risk that low, everyone become an angel investor. And it's like a huge incitation to be one. The second country after UK as a prominent market is France. And France has something very weird, is that half of the money invested in startup in the country come from the government. So that's a very socialist way of doing things. But it's built like a very big ecosystem. That's why there's so many startups in France, is that companies like BPI, that are the public national banks, they pour so much money so randomly that everyone can find public money. So the problem with public money is that it creates very fake company. Let me explain to you that. If you raise 500,000 euro and you give 25% of your company in exchange of that, you feel it. Because you gave something you never can get it back, ownership of your company. If someone gives you 200,000 and don't get any ownership inside your company because it's a public grant that you pay back only if your company is successful, then you can spend it. Because you don't really feel it, it's free money, so who cares? And so what happened? Every cash burn of every startup in France early on are higher than anywhere else because of this free money effect. And so when professional investors look at the burn of company, they are like, oh, you are spending too much. And why you are spending too much? Because it's free. But it's not free forever. The problem is that like you can raise 20 million for free in France. No, you can raise 300,000, 500,000 for free. And so because this money for free is early on, then you have a structure, finance structure of company that make them impossible to fundraise with professional investor. So it can be a trap. So one of the advice we give our startup in France is never take any public money and try to survive without it. Because it's not good to take free drugs. If you take drugs, pay for it. At least you will value it. Germany is a very interesting market because there is a monopoly in Germany from Rocket Internet. Who here heard about Rocket Internet? Okay, so Rocket Internet is a very giant venture factory built by three brothers, the Samware brothers. 20 years ago, they went in Silicon Valley, told everyone that they are doing a PhD about startup, asked questions to everyone, and then came back in Germany and built a copycat of eBay that they sold in 6 months for $100 million. And it was their starting point on the market. And from that, they did incredible investment. They built very big companies with one very simple business model, is that they look at anyone launching something in US that works, and then they try to copycat it everywhere around the world. They raised more than 19 billion. It's a very big venture factory. And Germany, if you look, 85% of the entrepreneurs in Germany, they are ex-people working at Rocket Internet. So it creates a lot of value. Like, a lot of people don't like Rocket Internet, but there is something very objectival about them, is that they build the Berlin ecosystem of startup by themselves. Because they are the people that, even the people that hate them and become entrepreneur is thanks to them. So even the people that have wrong relationship with them or hard relationship with them, at some point they started in the business because of Rocket. So Germany is very Rocket driven. The problem is that it's very transactional, it's very e-commerce, it's very marketplace. There is not that deep technological innovation in Berlin. You have more chance to find a Deliveroo copycat in Berlin than finding a Google. And so every investor, the only things they know to do is that they have been trained at the Rocket School. So they look at GMV, they look at retention, they look at growth rate, but they don't look at vision, product, team, because they never understand that. So you have a whole ecosystem that have been built Rocket style, and now everyone in this ecosystem, Rocket include, is trying to find something how to pivot and change. But it's really hard after 20 years of doing things very industrially to change the way you build things. And then in the rest of Europe, there is nothing. So if you want some numbers, something like 60% of the venture money come from UK, Europe-wise. On that, maybe after that, you will have 25% that come from Germany and French combined. Germany and France are quite equal in terms of fundraising size. And then the 5% left will be the rest of Europe. And the rest of Europe is devastated from a venture perspective. Like, if you're Italian and you want to be an entrepreneur, your best shot is to live in London. If you are in the Eastern country and you want to be an entrepreneur, your best shot is to move to Berlin. If you are in Northern country and you want to be an entrepreneur, they are all in London. Like Spotify raised from London. They did not really raise from Sweden. Like Spotify is a Sweden company, but they are first an American venture-backed company before everything else. So it's like there is not so much. And why? Because startup hubs concentrate. Little bit like movies industry. If you want to be Spielberg, you go to Hollywood, not anywhere else. So, and even if you have Bollywood now and Nollywood, it's still small compared to Hollywood. And so, if you look at the US, actually the US don't exist. You have Silicon Valley, that it will be maybe 80% of the venture industry. You will have New York, that is maybe 19% of the venture industry, and then you will have the rest of the US, that will represent 1%. So the venture is very poor law driven, meaning that a very small concentration of people will do a vast majority of deals and numbers. And the VC industry is very weird, because if you look at the returns of the funds, very few winners did a big chunk of the returns, and everybody else lose money. So it's a very unfair industry. It's an industry where it's really hard to make money because it's really hard to get a winner. Look Facebook, for example. How many Facebook have opened in the world? How many people invested in a competitor of Facebook? 1,000, 10,000, 100,000? Actually, I don't really have an idea, but I know it's a big number. And most of them are invisible, by the way. Like most, we often think that failed companies are companies that bankrupt. But most failed companies are companies you never heard about. They never got a press article. They worked 2 years in their living room and they told everyone that they are entrepreneurs. And after 2 years, their girlfriend or parents or whoever, they come and say, you should find a real job. And they say, yeah, sure. And they become a real employee and they tell all their life that they have been an entrepreneur. So you don't want to be on that side of entrepreneurship. If you do something crazy. Because at least if it failed, everybody will remember you. Like that, it's one of the best ways to strategize your career as an entrepreneur. So thank you. I'm sure you have a ton of questions. We have some time now for questions. I will be happy to answer. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Any advice on how to build your team?
Good question. Funding team should not. Oh, that's great. Funding team should not be built on expertise. It should be built on trust and friendship. There is this very fake attitude around funding team. When you talk with startup experts or people that pretend to be startup experts, one of my favorite questions is like, what is the perfect team? And people say, yeah, you need a very complementary funding team. And then you look at very successful company, and no one has a complementary funding team. Like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, where is the complementary? Like it's two robots together. It's like, it's easy. So like this fake thing, people say, oh, you need one hacker, one designer, one hustler, and all together we are so good. Like it's bullshit. If you are a hacker, you think that designer are bullshit and hustler are jerks. So you are not like, and if you are a hustler, you think that every hacker is just a slave that should work for you. So the truth is that what you need in a funding team is strong friendship and culture. My favorite test to test co-founders is to tell them, are you ready to give your bank account, social security number, and credit card to your co-founder for 2 months? And most of people are like, what? No. And then it's not a co-founder. My co-founder, I can give everything in my life. I'm fine. I'm safe. I trust her. So founding team should be built on trust, friendship. That's what brings you on the long way. Because one day, things will go wrong, and the friendship will make you survive. Of course, it's better to be friends with people that are good. But are we really friends with people that are worse than us? Not often. So if you are not good, you are friends with people that are not good, and then nothing happened anyway. And if you are not good, you will not be friends with people that are better than you, because they will not want to be friends with you. So don't try to think like that. Think more like we are friends and we are ready to learn everything we need to succeed. That's a much better attitude than being like, oh, I like that guy, I want to be a co-founder with him because he's good. Like, if you want to have a very concrete example of that, you look this dumb movie called The Social Network about the Facebook history. I don't know if everybody saw that movie. But if you look the Winklevoss brother and you look Mark Zuckerberg, you understand why they never have been co-founder. Like, how do you want that someone like Mark Zuckerberg respect that two guys? It's impossible. It's so ontologically impossible. So as co-founding team, you should build something that looks like more a cult than a company. And then you should hire for people that are compatible with that. You know, a lot of people think that you are successful in business because you are right. But it's not true. If that was true, Microsoft would never have been a success. You build a successful business when you are very coherent about what you are doing. And that starts by being true to yourself. When you start to be like in this metaphorical world of, oh, I have that, I need that, then it doesn't work that way. So culture needs homogeneity. And that can go with huge diversity of skills, of course. But homogeneity of mindset, diversity of skills. That's a perfect combination. Thank you.
Que la famille.